What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nate's Favorites, the segment on my channel where I pick one of my favorite movies of all time and talk about it in great detail. And this has been a super fun segment for me lately. As I've said before, doing YouTube and releasing reviews every single day, sometimes it's hard to find time to just sit down and watch one of your all-time favorite movies. And this segment gives me the excuse to just essentially watch whatever I want when it comes to one of my favorites. And this is a movie that has meant a lot to me over the years. This is a huge comfort movie for me. It's a film that whenever I feel like I'm getting really down or depressed or upset, I can put on and it immediately lifts my spirits. It makes me feel comforted, makes me feel optimistic about life, which I think is really important despite the fact that this movie hits on some pretty depressing subject matter in moments. And this is from director Sofia Coppola, who I personally think is just an incredible director. Despite having some films in her catalog that I don't think are necessarily as strong, this is my favorite movie that she's made in her career. I think that it's such an important movie, a movie that just gets better every time I rewatch it. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Lost in Translation. Lost in Translation is directed by Sofia Coppola. Two lost souls visiting Tokyo, the young, neglected wife of a photographer and a washed-up movie star shooting a TV commercial, find an odd solace and pensive freedom to be real in each other's company away from their lives in America. So, as I said, I absolutely adore this movie. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. I feel like this movie does a brilliant and beautiful job at showcasing that feeling of loneliness and abandonment and isolation whether you're in a relationship or you're on your own, that you just feel like life is kind of coasting and it's hard to find any sort of joy or happiness in a specific moment. And these two human beings who are both in committed relationships who have a pretty drastic age gap are experiencing a period in their lives where neither one of them knows what they want and they don't know what is best for them. And they meet on a chance encounter and they find joy in each other's company. They like talking to each other. They like joking around with each other. And it's so much of a movie about not long-term relationship or commitment, but a movie about finding someone who can bring you joy at a period in life that you need it the most. And I think that there's something just so really refreshing and beautiful about that, and I'm really excited to talk about that in detail with you today when I break the movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Bob, played by Bill Murray, who is a movie star, but it seems like his career is to a point where he's not really making movies as much anymore, and he is in Tokyo because he's filming a commercial for this whiskey, and you can tell he's kind of down on himself. We see him have a lot of phone calls with his wife. The two of them, they're sort of cordial with one another, but you can feel this distance between the two of them, where she's at home taking care of their kids, he's out doing this thing. She sees it as oh man, look at your life, you're doing this while I'm at home taking care of our kids, and it's creating this level of separation between the two of them. And at the same time, we are introduced to Charlotte, played by Scarlett Johansson, who is in Tokyo with her husband John, played by Giovanni Ribisi, who he is a photographer, I believe, for musicians, and he's constantly out doing work, which leaves Charlotte at home to be by herself. They're currently in this hotel together, and she's just spending every single day by herself in complete and total isolation, and she's bored and she's lonely. She tries to make calls back home to the United States to her friends. They never want to stay on for very long, and she just feels kind of purposeless in her day-to-day. She's not working a job currently, and so she'll go out and meet some of her friends in the city and she'll go explore, but she doesn't seem to get any fulfillment out of that. And so one night, these two people who are in this huge city, technologically advanced city, but don't speak the language, they feel kind of like they're in their own worlds. They go to this bar together and they meet and they strike up this conversation. And there's something between them. You can feel this spark and this energy between the two of them where they joke around together. They're kind of matching each other's intellect, and they decide to go out on the town together. And the entirety of the film is these two characters spending multiple evenings together and feeling this sense of rejuvenation about life because of the way that they connect with one another. So as I said, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think that it emulates this feeling of just comfort and hopefulness about the future in a way that you don't get from a lot of movies. For starters, Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson are phenomenal in this movie. Bill Murray's obviously been acting for a very long time, and he delivers a really great performance. I feel like there's definitely elements of himself in this role that you can feel just like in the way that he comes across. He's got this really like just kind of straightforward sense of humor that I really like a lot, and just the way that he interacts with people. And obviously he's playing this character who he's a little bit older. I think he's in his 40s in this movie, and he's been in the industry for a while, and he's in this place that, you know, he's unfamiliar with. He doesn't speak the language, and he's interacting with these people from Japan who, there's some really like wholesome moments between people that he doesn't speak the same language as. There's this really great moment where he takes Scarlett Johansson to this hospital because she's like hurt her foot really bad, and she's like getting a scan on her foot, and he's like having this conversation with a person who doesn't speak any English. And it's just so charming to see these people from two completely different backgrounds interact and like enjoy a conversation, even though they don't really know what each other are saying. And like there's moments where like they interact with people that it's downright hilarious, because you're just lost in this place you don't really understand. And Scarlett Johansson does a phenomenal job playing this young person who's recently graduated college. I can't remember what she says her degree's in, but she's recently graduated, and she's trying to figure out what she wants with her life. And she's married this man at a very young age, and there's already this sense of separation between the two of them. Whereas Bill Murray has been in a relationship for a while, he has children, and he's experiencing this separation in his married life because of like the travel he's doing, and maybe there's just not that closeness. And so what's interesting about bringing these two people together is the way that they've experienced relationships in their lives, and the way that they one of them is relatively younger. She's just got out of college, so she's probably in like her early 20s, to where this other guy is in his 40s and has experienced much more of life. But they're both lost in a very similar way, to where no matter how much of that life you have experienced, that you're still just trying to find out how to move forward, and how to like find some sort of joy or some sort of kickstart in just living and enjoying this experience of life that we have. And because of their incredible performances, and especially the way they play off each other comedically, really works together. And what's interesting about this movie is like you obviously can construe elements of this in like a romantic way, and there's obviously like some sort of tension there between the two characters romantically. But I feel like so much more about this movie is like a soul connection, because there's very little like touch in this movie, or like embrace. Like the touches in this movie are very subtle. It reminds me of like In the Mood for Love, the Wong Kar-wai movie. Like you can feel that palpable tension and connection between two characters, but it's not necessarily through physical intimacy. And that takes two really incredible actors and a very talented director to convey that to you as an audience member in a way that you can feel it in such a visceral way. And that's one of the things that I really love about this movie, is the connection between these two characters that are relatively unlikely, because like I said, you have someone in their early 20s mixed with someone in their 40s, so you have like a 20-year age gap between these characters. But because they're more connected through like this soul connection, and through their intellect and the way that they talk to one another, it's like a totally different thing. And I really think it's impressive the way Sofia Coppola is able to write these characters in a way that is easy to connect with. This movie is beautifully shot. I think it showcases the city of Tokyo in a way that's just so, it feels almost like a fantasy land. It feels like just such an otherworldly place. And the way that it's captured, not only through the colors, but through the bright lights, and the handheld camera movement a lot of times when characters are running through an unfamiliar location. It really does fit the title of like lost, being in this place you're completely and totally unfamiliar with, and just like the excitement of experiencing that new thing with these characters that are yearning so much for that feeling of happiness, and to kind of get out of that pit of like depression and despair. And I love the contrast of those feelings in this movie. Love the musical choices in this, not only the score, but like the regular music that is played in the film creates a really unique atmosphere and tone that I really appreciate. And every time I revisit this movie, I love it even more. And it's just a movie, like I said, that makes me feel relatively hopeful. I love the ending of this movie. I think that it's so beautifully written, because no one, I think, watching this movie has any sort of indication that these characters are going to end up together. Like, I don't think that's the intention or the goal of the movie whatsoever. As I said, I think it's like being at a period in your life where you feel completely and totally lost and that you don't know what you want and you don't know what's going to make you feel joy or happiness in a specific moment, and finding a person who can kind of reignite that spark for you and change your perspective on what's important and change your perspective on the things to look forward to and the things to appreciate. And there's just something so beautiful about that, because I feel like there's so many of us in this world that get lost and up in our heads about living like the same day-to-day existence, or feeling, monotonous in your life and in the way that you interact with the world. And I just think there's something so wonderful and optimistic about Sofia Coppola's intention here and what she's trying to accomplish. And it's a movie that always brings a smile to my face. I tear up when I watch this movie almost every time, and watching it this time just brought me an immense amount of joy. I love this movie a lot. I really, really look forward to revisiting it every time I get the opportunity to. And I think if you've never seen it before, it's a little slower paced. People a lot of times are like, it's an aesthetic movie, but I think there's something really beautiful going on here that if you take the time and energy to pay attention to it, I think it'll genuinely move you. So have you seen Lost in Translation? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I think this movie is absolutely beautiful. I love everything about it, and I always really look forward to revisiting it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.